Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our financial series, financial literacy series. We are having our number 5 workshop of this series. Thank you for attending. To those who have attended our previous workshops, and welcome to any new attendees. This workshop is about female financial freedom. It's hosted by me, Cecilia Venusta-Weigel. I'm Vice President, Program Committee Chair of the Center for the Women of New York. With us, we have Kathy Carroll, who has been wonderful hosting this, giving us so much information about taxes up until the last workshop. And now she's changing gears a little bit to another very important topic, female financial freedom. For those of you who don't know us, the Center for the Women of New York advocates for women's rights and full equality. Since 1987, CWNY has been empowering women to reach their full potential by offering services that provide the skills, information, and support they need to address economic, emotional, and legal challenges. Given the vast women's needs to the pandemic in 2021, CWNY's focus is women's health and well-being, physical and mental, and women's financial independence, which we're talking about today. CWNY offers educational programs as well as support services and classes. Our educational outreach consists of panel discussions and webinars on domestic violence, trafficking awareness, health and wellness, financial literacy and independence, and career advancement. Our services are a caregiver support group for those of us who take care of elderly family members or friends. We have a women in crisis support group, ESL classes, English as a second language classes, fitness classes, and we do referrals. If we don't have a service that you're looking for, we'll guide you in the right direction. Our upcoming events are a nutrition and yoga class. Check out our website for more information. It will be at the end of this month, which is Women's Health Month. Career workshops next month in June. Women's art exhibit in the near future. Green Team sustainable gardening classes and activities. Book club and a film club on women's issues. If you would like to download this PowerPoint presentation, you can find it very soon, in a couple of days, at cwny.org/past-events. For funding, we would love for you to help us learn what geographic areas we're reaching out with this financial literacy series. So if you could please fill out the brief 2-question Google form that's on the chat. We would appreciate it. You can click on it and fill it out and click submit. If you dialed in, it would be great if you can email your zip code to events@cwny.org. We really appreciate your help. For questions, your questions will be addressed after this presentation by Kathy Carroll. You can use the chat box at the bottom of your Zoom screen to ask any questions you have about this topic. If you dialed in, you can email your questions to events@cwny.org, and Lana, our amazing staff, will be checking the email and will address your questions as well. Now, about Kathy Carroll. Kathy is a professional accountant, enrolled agent to practice before the Internal Revenue Service. She has been practicing accounting, providing bookkeeping services since 1981 to the present. She works with individual and corporate clients. She directed and ran the Student Association Income Tax Preparation Program at Queens College for 26 years. She also ran an annual seminar at the International Students and Scholars Office at Queens College. These programs provided free on-campus tax prep and advice to students. She received a BS in accounting, bachelor's in accounting from the CW Post Center of Long Island University, and attended a graduate program at New York University. Kathy volunteers for our organization, for the Center for the Women of New York, as a current treasurer and former vice president of finance. She provides job and vocational trainings, presents at our financial literacy programs here, and is a CWNY work readiness program advisor. Kathy may be rich, and here you have it, her address and her phone number. Feel free to take a quick picture if you need it. Kathy is always happy to help. If you are live, again, we will address your questions. As I said, feel free to write your questions on the chat or send us an email at any point during this presentation. We will make sure we address them at the end. Kathy, take it away. Thank you for being with us tonight again.
Yeah, thank you, Cecilia. Thank you for having me. All right, now our webinar this evening is going to be about female financial freedom, gaining control of your financial life. The first 4 webinars of our CWNY Financial Literacy Series concerned federal and state income tax preparation. The topics covered in the 4-part series were very timely, as this tax season contained many unprecedented changes that needed to be addressed on an ongoing basis. As of May 17th, this past Monday, the 2020 tax season came to an end, thank goodness, with the exception of returns that are on extension, after being extended by a full month. Now that the tax season has ended, other important financial topics are ready to be discussed. To view the 4-part tax filing workshops, visit cwny.org/past events. The importance of personal financial knowledge. One of the components of the CWNY mission statement is to provide skills and information needed to address economic challenges, among other types of challenges that women may face. A significant portion of the adult population, particularly women, do not have sufficient knowledge and money management skills to make important financial decisions that can affect their present and future life. A 2018 FINRA study found financial capability, stability, and confidence are not improving. Over 53% of adults, that's a majority, say thinking about their financial situation makes them anxious. 44% say discussing their financing is stressful. This comes from a website, which is notated here, www.oploans.com. And the FINRA is the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. They control brokerage houses and stock investment companies, and they do financial studies on a regular basis. And it would be very interesting to study the statistics that are there. Personal finance can affect many aspects of one's life on a daily basis. From the moment a person leaves the home each day, there is a need for cash or a cash equivalent, such as a debit card, credit card, a check, because money is needed to travel to work or school, to go to the supermarket and other stores, to put gas in the car, and to transact other types of daily business. It's like this type of personal finance we don't even really think about because everybody just, it's just normal everyday activities. But if it does involve money management, even on a small day-to-day basis. Personal finance topics include developing money management skills, the impact of various taxes on one's financial plan, financial services, including savings plans and payment accounts being loans, personal loans, car loans, consumer credit advantages, disadvantages, sources, and costs, consumer purchasing, including the purchasing of automobiles, selecting and financing housing, home and automobile insurance, health, disability income and life insurance, investing in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, and planning for education, retirement, and estate planning. personal finance is for everyone. A lot of people may think, oh, I don't need a financial plan, or personal finance doesn't involve me, but yes, it does, just because, as we were discussing before, the minute you step out of the house, if you're spending money, you need to have some idea of personal finance. The topics that we just mentioned may seem like a tremendous amount of topics and a lot to absorb, but each one of these important topics, once understood and applied, can lead to a successful financial plan that can help you and your family to a better life. Personal finance is not just something for people with money. It is something for everyone. What is personal finance? Personal financial planning can be defined as the process of managing your money to achieve personal economic satisfaction. This is from the textbook Focus on Personal Finance by Jack Kapoor and a few other authors, the 6th edition. This is a textbook that I discovered because my niece, who is graduating from community college in Connecticut this week, had this textbook for a personal finance class that was part of her business administration course. So I was looking at the textbook and I realized that this book is just amazing, and we're going to be using this textbook and relying on a lot of the information in it throughout this series. Everyone, no matter how little or how much money they have, can make both short-term and long-term financial plans in order to achieve their own personal goals. Factors that affect one's financial plan include age, marital status, number and age of household members, and one's employment situation. Employment, the Form W-4. A major component of one's financial plan is their employment, what type of job someone has, what type of career they've chosen. And one of the first things that would happen at any job, whether it's an entry-level job or a higher-level job, no matter what it is, if you're working for an employer, they should provide you as a new employee with a tax withholding certificate known as the W-4. This form, which is from the IRS, tells the employer how much tax to take from an employee's pay, whether it be weekly, biweekly, or monthly. This is an example of the Form W-4. Thought it would be interesting for everyone to see this. This form has changed this year. It used to be, I don't want to say more straightforward, because it was never a straightforward form, but it's gotten even a little bit more convoluted now in this new version, but this is a very important form. It used to have lines on it where you could actually add up numbers anywhere from 0 to 9, and those would be called your withholding exemptions. Now, this form, the new form, it doesn't give you the option of having a number from 0 to 9, but at the end of the calculations that they do provide, the answer should still come out to 0 or some other number. So this form has to be read carefully when you receive it. If you don't understand it, you should consult the personnel department or the human resources department, or you can just tell them what number of exemptions you would like to have and have them help you fill it in. W-4 is very important to both the employer and the employee, as this information will determine the net, which is your take-home pay, that the employee will receive. If too much tax is taken out, the employee may not have enough money to take home and pay bills. On the other hand, if not enough tax is taken out, the employee may owe tax at the end of the year. And this is always, as we just got done doing taxes, this is always very tricky, because nobody wants to come in and be told that, okay, yeah, you owe $1,000 because you didn't have enough tax taken out of your pay. But on the other hand, if you have too much withholding, you really just might be in a position where you just don't have enough money to run your house or pay your bills. Withholding on a W-4 works inversely. The higher the number claimed, the less tax is withheld. The highest tax amount would be taken out for someone who claims zero. And that means if you married zero or single zero, because it's also based on your what you put down as your marital status. But zero in any case is always going to be the highest amount of withholding for whatever category you're in. So someone claiming zero would have the lowest amount of take-home pay. It is important to understand how these numbers work so that an adequate amount of net pay is balanced against the possibility of a large payment due at tax time. A situation with these W-4s comes into play too when people have more than one job, because the part of the form is supposed to take into consideration if people have multiple jobs, because the tax at one job may not know anything about if the person has another job. So the withholding could be correct on each individual job, but then when you put the two of them together at the end of the year, more than likely there would not be enough tax withheld. So that's a situation that has to be watched out for also. Developing financial goals. There are three types of financial goals: short-term, intermediate goals, and long-term goals. Short-term goals will take place within the next year or so, such as if you're planning for a vacation or a special party, like a wedding or something like that. Intermediate goals are generally 2 to 5 years. This might be possibly the purchase of a home or moving to another state or something that's a little bit into the future. Long-term goals involve plans that are more than 5 years in the future, such as if you're planning to go to college, if you're saving money for education, or if you're older and you're making plans for retirement. Now, this is called the S.M.A.R.T approach to goals. When you have a financial plan, you should write it out, because this way you can easily review it and refer to it as you need to. The S.M.A.R.T approach to goals includes the following guidelines. S is for specific, M is measurable, A is action-oriented, R is realistic, and T is time-based. Following the S.M.A.R.T approach in developing a financial plan provides a simple and easy way to keep focused on the goals to be achieved. If the goal is specific, then you are creating the goal and a plan to achieve it. It has to be measurable. The goal should be based on a specific amount of money. It should be action-oriented. Plan the actions to achieve the goal. It should be realistic. Goals should be achievable based on one's current economic circumstances. And it should be time-based. So you have to determine the current financial situation, develop the financial goals, identify alternative courses of action, evaluate the alternative courses of action, and create and implement the financial action plan, and then review and revise the plan. So this is all like a work in progress. It's like as you're doing it, you're just thinking about what you need to do, how much money you need to get there, how you're going to set it up and get the money or save the money. What would be a different way to go about doing the plan? Then you can go back and say, okay, the first way was the best way. Then you begin to save or invest or do what you need to do to make the plan happen. And then as you go along, you see how much money you're accumulating or what returns you're getting on the investments. So then you can review and revise the plan. Studies show that 2 in 3 families lack an emergency fund, and 78% of adults live paycheck to paycheck. There was a statistic out at the beginning of the pandemic before the government started issuing aid to people and stimulus checks, and it said that the average American family has only $400 in reserve, which is certainly not enough to handle any kind of an emergency. These two statistics are even more alarming in light of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. A practical and working financial plan presents women and men alike an opportunity to have their financial house in order when emergencies arise, as well as to plan for the future. So this seminar today is an overview of what we're going to be working with going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathy. If you would like to take a quick picture or take a look at these resources, please feel free to do so. I'll give you all a minute. These are all useful resources where we get a lot of information for our members. All right. Thank you so much, Kathy. As usual, we're very happy that you're here addressing such important topics. I think there are a few questions in the chat, so we're going to.
Okay, you're welcome. And sure, if we have any questions.
A little bit to look at the chat. Yeah, there are quite a few questions, so I'll have you for a little longer. Okay. If you haven't filled out the form about your zip code, please do so. The link is on the chat. First question is, what is the difference between a married couple filing jointly or separately?
Okay, well, that question goes back to our tax seminar, and there is actually quite a bit of difference between married filing joint and married filing separate. Obviously, people that are married, those are the only two options that they have. I've seen over the years plenty of tax returns. I didn't do them. The previous accountant had done them, where a person that should have been filing married filing separate was filing as single. And that's not really permissible under the tax law. If you're married, you have to file married filing joint or married filing separate. Now, the IRS, I guess in their wisdom, feels that they want people to file married filing jointly. So what they have created over the years is that the married filing separate tax rate is the highest tax rate out there. It starts out as equal with the single tax rate, but then as you get into a higher income bracket, the tax is actually higher than the single tax rate. So my advice on that is, if at all possible, unless there's some real extenuating circumstances, if you're married, you should be married filing joint because it's beneficial to you tax-wise.
Thank you, Kathy. So do you mind explaining again or clarifying? So it's very strange to hear that there won't be 0 or 1 exemption when filling out the W-4 form. So that is the only case.
Yeah, the new W-4, as I say, it's like it just came out this January, and it's very different than the other one used to be. And it just the calculations don't come out to give you the number that you need. It asks you questions about. It doesn't ask you how many dependents you have, as it did in the past. It doesn't ask you if you're married or single. In the end, your withholding is still based on the number, no matter how they design this form. So I think at some point they're going to have to redesign this form back to what it was, so that you get to know the number of dependents and the number of exemptions that you're claiming on this form.
It almost feels that you don't have any control over whether or not you want to be taking a lot of money, or like to be safe, or not money because you want it there. You want it at that time.
Right. No, that's exactly true. With the new form, it's very vague as to what is actually going to be taken out of your pay. That's why I was saying in the webinar that it might be a good idea to try and discuss this with someone at the job, because whatever job you're at, you will have to hand it in to someone who's going to review it. So it's best to keep on top of it and make sure that the correct amount of tax is being taken out. Generally, what I find is that if someone is, let's say, claiming single zero, let's use the simplest case, they should basically be having about 10% or more taken out of their pay for federal. And you also have state and city that you have to make sure that enough tax is being taken out there too. But let's say someone making $20,000 a year, they should have about $2,000 taken out in federal withholding, just to be on the safe side. I mean, in that case, 95% of the time they would get a refund, but at least they wouldn't be under withheld. So it's something that employees really have to keep on top of, to watch how much is being taken out, make sure it's enough or not too much.
Right. Thank you so much for that. Now, if there's a question here about, so if you're a woman and you don't think that there is any time to put together the SMART goals that you talked about, do you have any suggestion about how to make time for that, and will it save you time in the long run?
Well, I think that I know, everyone is very, very busy, and, a lot of people, they don't have too much time. But I mean, at some point, everyone, men and women, both, it should take some time, at least a little time, to sit down and think about these things. Because as we said in the last couple of slides, you don't want to have to start thinking about these things when an emergency happens. And you'll be like, oh my God, here's an emergency. I don't have enough money to do anything about this. So I would advise everyone to, even with a small amount of time, to just sit and think about the SMART system. I think is something that doesn't require a lot of time. It just kind of gets you focused on what you need to do. And then you don't have to sit down for hours and hours and do it all at once. You can just kind of start to think about it. Maybe if you have a few minutes here or a few minutes there, and then you can have it all come together and start to implement it.
And as I see it, it's not something that you have to sit down and create and spend a lot of time and do it, but it's like a live document or tool that you'll have, right? You'll have to keep changing your goals depending on what stage and what's happening with your finances and your life and family, right?
Right, exactly. Like I would think, just maybe I'm being overly simplistic, but I would think that most people, at some point in your life would probably want to buy a house. So maybe if you're renting an apartment, you could, where it says, consider the alternatives. People could see how much rent they're paying. And then maybe just, if they have a couple of free minutes, just go to there's mortgage calculators on the internet. I mean, they're very good and they're very quick. So if you're paying a certain amount in rent, you could just go on a mortgage calculator and see how much that rent payment would equal in a mortgage to a house. So then if it was at all economically feasible, then you can say, okay, my $2,000 a month rent will support, let's say, a $400,000 or $500,000 mortgage at the interest rates that exist now. They're very low. I don't know if they're going to stay low forever, but right now they're very low. So then you say, oh, look at that. Maybe I could, if I can afford a $400,000 mortgage, if I have some kind of a small down payment, maybe there's some kind of a house I can afford someplace. So it's just you just have to assess the possibilities with what you have. That's why it's saying, to use your current economic conditions to, try to see what the better alternatives are.
Thank you, Kathy. And then lastly, do you have any advice for women who have never or very little paid attention to the finances, because the husband is the one who handles that? How do you start from having never, taken any role in the finances of the household? Where do you start from?
This is a very good question, Cecilia. I was actually trying to figure out how to incorporate it into the webinar without I don't know. There was no way to actually incorporate it into the webinar itself, but this is actually a very good question. And this affects women of all economic groups and all different situations. I mean, I have, a very good friend of mine who, she's got a great career. She's a very brilliant woman. She makes a big salary. And when I talk to her, it's like she lets her husband do everything. It's like she basically just gives him her big paycheck, and then he pays all the bills, and he does this and he does that. I mean, they're very, well off. I mean, he's been doing a good job, I have to say. I mean, they have good investments and things like that. But it's like, I just can't believe that somebody of her caliber has no clue as to, what the bills are, what needs to be paid. And, then he questions what she's spending. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, there's no reason for that. But I would think that all women should participate. You have to, because first of all, most women I know are working, and most of them are doing pretty well. And why shouldn't their salaries, why shouldn't they know what's happening with their salaries? It's just like a matter of like, you have to have some self-respect, like it's your money. So even if you are letting the husband pay the bills and things like that, he should inform you. He should let you know what's happening.
Right.
And then the thing is, too, what we were saying about emergencies, then it can become very serious, because then if there is an emergency and something happens to the husband, then what goes on? Then the woman may not know what needs to be paid. Even if she has the money to do it, she may not know what it is. And that's like really not good. So everyone should be informed about what's going on in their house and participate.
Kathy, this reminds me, what you're saying reminds me of another workshop that we offered late last year, that our facilitator gave an example of so many women come to financial advisors with the big box of documents that they have zero familiarity with. Like, they don't know what it is. When husbands pass away and women have not been involved in the finances of the household, then a woman is left in a place that it's unfortunate, not knowing what they own or knowing what they are supposed to do, what the expectations of like different entities are, where their financial responsibilities are that they have, and they will still have even when their husbands are not there. So it's very important that we all get a little bit of control over our finances and not,
Right.
let our husbands do it.
And that's true at any age, for younger women and for even much older women, because I also had a circumstance with a tax client that I had where her husband, he eventually did pass away, but he developed Alzheimer's, and he had been handling all the finances. And, with all these tax laws that are out there, for people that are, now they just changed the law to 72, but it was 70 and a half, that if you have investments and you were over 70 and a half, you had to take the money out. Now, her husband had been doing that, but then when he developed the Alzheimer's, he couldn't tell her. He didn't even remember he had any investments. So she wound up with, I helped her straighten it out. We got it straightened out, but the IRS was trying to send her a huge penalty for not taking the money out. And she just had no idea. She didn't even know that law existed. So it's like really important to know all this stuff.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Kathy. This is like very important information for our members. And we really appreciate everything that you shared tonight with us.
You're welcome.
Thank you. As usual. If anyone has any question, please feel free to put it in the chat. In the meantime, I'll share our contact information. If you would like to watch this again, or any past events we had, the tax workshops, you can find them in cwny.org. You can also find all our services and events that we have. We have 2 locations in Queensboro Hall. Here's the address and the phone number, and Fort Charlton, both in Queens. If you would like to email us with any questions, you can email us at info@cwny.org. And you can also follow us on social media. We're doing awareness campaigns. We're doing a Women's Health Month this month. And, every month we try to raise awareness about a different topic. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and we have a new podcast. So check us out. We appreciate you coming. Thank you so much all for attending. And we look forward to having you again at our next events, next workshops. And remember that these workshops will continue throughout the year. And it's on the third Wednesday of every month from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Or, some of them will be a little shorter, depending on the topic and on the amount of questions we have. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you again for attending. Thank you, Kathy, so much for your presentation.
You're welcome. And thank you. Thank you very much.